Dr. Michael Oren joins me now from Israel. Dr. Oren, UCLA, you've lectured there, haven't you?
I'd like to, sure. Where haven't I lectured?
And
Yes, I have.
and UCI, I know you memorably got heckled by the Islamists there. What do you make of what's
Yeah.
going on in American campuses this morning?
I think it's an assault on America. It's assault on America disguised as an assault on Israel, which it is. But far beyond that, it's something much, much deeper. I was reading an article today in the Guardian by a Yale undergraduate, and it's very instructive. And I just want to read you one paragraph. Okay, it talks about the faculty support for the protesters. This is at Yale. Okay, and the undergraduate writes the following: I go to a school that offers classes called Contesting Injustice, Political Protests, and the Liberation Movement. Yale is a member of the greater systems, machines, and institutions which perpetuate oppression, yet teaches us to knock them down. Isn't that great? What you're
You
paying
know,
for.
we're not old enough
So
to have been there
the
in
word Israel's not even
1968,
in there.
but I can remember
The word
I can
Israel's not
remember
even
the
in there.
books about Tom. Tom Hayden became a friend of mine, and he'd laugh about the Weathermen, even though the Weathermen were not a laughing matter. Dr. Orrin,
They
let's
were
go to
not.
the
They killed
important
people.
stuff. Hamas
Okay.
has rejected the latest offer. The war cabinet meets at 6:30 p.m. Israeli time. What do you expect them to decide?
They have to decide on going into Rafah. And by the way, of course, it was no surprise that Hamas rejected the offer. I mean, why would they accept the offer, Hugh? The world, particularly the United States, is telling them to hold on, that they're going to hold Israel back. All right. It's a strange policy. What can I say? I can't figure it out. On one hand, the Biden administration says that Israel's latest offer was extraordinarily generous. By the way, very, very hotly contested in this country, and extraordinarily generous. And on the other hand, they say to Israel, you can't go into Rafah under any condition. So what is the message to Hamas? Keep rejecting. Why would Hamas give up
Yeah,
solid assets to hold off an invasion, which he knows is not going to happen? It makes absolutely no sense. I'm completely baffled.
the rational actor here, I hate to say this because they're obviously irrational mass murderers, but the rational actor in negotiation term is Hamas because they say
Sure.
no and America makes Israel offer a better deal. So if you're Yahweh Sinwar and you're in the tunnel, you just say no and you make a big deal about considering it and pretend there's a negotiation. Then you say no. At some point, you've got to stop negotiating against yourself, don't you?
At one point, Israel has to say to Sinwar's going to keep on trying to basically bargain us down. So we've gone down from 40 hostages to 33 hostages. And Sinwar can come back and say, well, maybe I'll do it for 25. And if we go down to 25, and then he'll say, well, maybe we'll do it for 18. And it'll go on and on because he has no disincentive. There's no America saying, we're trying to hold the Israelis back, but we can't do it. So listen, it's either accept this very generous offer or you're going to die. No one's giving Sinwar that choice. So why should he take it?
So the most underreported fact that I would like to know from you, and you've got your hand on the pulse there. I know that Israel wants to get innocents out of Rafah before they go in. I know they've built the camp. Have the Rafah citizens begun to walk to the new camp where they will not be bombed and will not be caught in the crossfire?
I'm told by the IDF that the IDF feels it can conduct this operation with the very minimum of Palestinian civilian casualties. There will be accidents. Listen, we had 2 soldiers killed by our own tank fire this week. Upwards of 20% of Israeli casualties in this war have been by friendly fire. I've been in war before, and I've seen friendly fire. I've probably seen more Israeli soldiers killed by friendly fire than by enemy fire. It happens even in open air combats, much more so in densely populated, densely built up urban areas where the civilian population doesn't have far to flee, and where you're fighting basically 2 wars at the same time. You're fighting a two-tiered war, one on the surface and one below the surface, with all those tunnels. No modern army ever confronted anything like that. So, the Israeli army, with that all going against it, believes it can conduct the final battle against Hamas without incurring too many civilian casualties. That's the hope, certainly. But to have the United States say that under no circumstances, under no conditions, that Israel can go into Rafah, it's not just unfair to Israel. It's bad negotiating policy. It
Yeah.
just it's just no wonder that Hamas said no.
I've never been an international negotiator, but I had to negotiate with the federal government a lot, and you don't negotiate against yourself, rule number one. Ambassador Oren, I want to talk about the hostage families right now. We saw the hostage video of Hirsch, Goldberg, Pollen. I listened to Dan Senor's heartbreaking interview with his parents. I know two more videos were released of hostages, so it's psychological terror being practiced by Hamas. What do the hostage families have one voice? Do they have many voices? What is their position on this?
There is a majority voice and minority voice, put it that way. There's a majority voice which is very vocal in calling Israel to make virtually every possible concession to get the hostages back. Um, and some would even say Israel should, declare that it lost the war and remove to the border and let Hamas take over the Gaza Strip again, and we'll fight another day. That's what they'll say. The amazing thing is to get the hostages back because that goes to the very DNA of this state. But there's a minority group that says that they're unwilling to negotiate, even for their beloved ones, at any price, because they know that once Hamas gets out of Rafah, it will recapture the Gaza Strip. It will kill vast numbers of Israelis, in addition to those who already died in this war, and certainly on October 7th. And Israel will release from prison prisoners who have blood on their hands and will go back killing Israelis, much as Yahya Sinwar did when he was let out of prison in 2011 in exchange for Israeli prisoner Gilad Shalit. So there's the minority camp. It's a vocal minority camp, but the majority camp is still calling for a deal at virtually any price.
Okay, so that's the hostage family public opinion. What about Israeli public opinion generally? Do they want the operation to begin in Rafah?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Now,
I think
Dr. Oren,
it's
you're a military historian. I want to remind people of this. I've never seen or read of a war being led this way. I am aware of Napoleon's dictum, and I'm going to paraphrase: "If you're going to take Vienna, take Vienna." When does Netanyahu read that dictum?
I think it's also from I think the good, bad, and the ugly. If you're gonna shoot, don't talk, right? that's the that's the addendum to the Napoleonic dictum. If you're gonna shoot, don't talk. There's been entirely too much talk here. That's clear. There's a lot of criticism, not just on the gross failures of October 7th, but also on the way the war has been conducted. Why did we leave Rafah for last? Why didn't we do a pincer movement beginning from north and south? There are going to be many questions that are going to have to be answered in the day after in this country, and many people will have to, as they say, reach the right conclusions, the inevitable conclusions, and resign. Don't know, but right now we've been waiting a very long time to go into Rafah. There have been reasons. Sometimes the army has been tired. We needed to give certain units a break. We needed to pile up on the ammunition, and maybe give Sinwar a chance to release some of the more hostages. Just give him a chance by pressuring him. It's interesting that those videos that have been released are released because Hamas feels a little bit of pressure, not much. And
You're,
and so, yes, it's about time we stop talking and we start acting.
and what will be a signal to you? I mean, will an IDF spokesperson come out and say the Rafah operation has commenced, or will it just commence?
It will commence, and then later the spokesman will come out and say that it commenced. But we'll know about it well in advance of that because you can almost hear the guns from where I'm sitting. You'll see it. You'll see troops
Now,
streaming to that area. They do
I
it.
had your
Now,
friend
having said all
Yossi
that,
Klein.
Bill, if Thomas, Yossi Klein, oh, how was Yossi Klein Levy? How was my best friend there?
It was great. And by the way, he had wonderful things to say about you. He was fabulous, but he is a man mugged by reality. And I read letters to a Palestinian neighbor, and Yossi was very candid that he doesn't have any bandwidth yet left anymore for the peace movement. Does anyone?
Not many, not many. And I can only speak for my own family, which is kind of center left. They think anybody's talking about a Palestinian state now is crazy. It's crazy. It doesn't mean that Israel can't talk about it. It doesn't cost us anything to talk about a pathway. They always talk about a pathway. But actually creating a Palestinian state that will be taken over by Hamas in a matter of days, and nobody in the United States can guarantee that's not going to happen. Nobody. Especially if it's a democratic
Now, what I did
state, 85% of the Palestinians support Hamas.
What I did talk with Yossi about, and he mentioned you, is looking back, and we got a minute to the break. Did Sharon make the right decision to retreat from Gaza in 2005?
Well, he made part of the right decision. I'm more equivocal about it and say that we didn't have to withdraw from all the settlements. We could have kept certainly the ones around the international border, and we could have set the rules for responding to rocket fire. Sharon said that when the first rocket gets fired, we're going to go back in, and they fired 6,000 rockets, and we never did anything.